Hello and welcome to my channel. This is a walk around review of the TroyBilt Storm 2860. The Troy-Bilt Storm series is TroyBilt's economical line, and I'm going to show you all the features of this snowblower and why it may be just the right machine for you. So let's get started.
Down in the dirt. Been real bad.
The controls on the TroyBilt, this one in particular, are real easy to use. There's not a lot of tension that you have to put on. Your hands won't go numb hanging on to these when you have a real long stretch to clear. This also has the one-hand control, so you can put them down, lift up on this hand, go ahead and turn your chute, turn your deflector, whatever you need to do, and it'll still keep running. Oh, and this one does have heated hand grips. You don't find that in a $800 machine very often. And these do work. These work very well. One other thing I want to talk about here on the handles, a couple other things I want to talk on the handles. Let me move around here a little bit. TroyBilt uses nut bolts and lock nuts on here. So if you happen to buy one, you have to put it together, you will have to use a wrench to tighten those down. That's very nice because it stays put, it doesn't rattle, everything's nice and stiff. They don't loosen up like some of the ones with the plastic wing nuts on them. Let's talk about the chute a little bit on this. TroyBilt is finally getting away from that four-way chute control. That's another love-hate type system. Myself, I was never a big fan of it, particularly because nobody taught you how to use it correctly. But now they've gone to the deflector and the chute crank. The chute crank is a fast crank, a couple turns, back and forth all the way across. It's easy to use, it stays put, it doesn't wander around on you. A couple nice things about that. They put the deflector control here, and the tension for the deflector is still back out there on the chute itself. Let me move around here a little bit. So the deflector tension is right there. If you notice, everybody nowadays is going to metal. Metal is more of a marketing ploy than if it's better or not. This chute here, this particular chute, has been around for a while, probably close to 10 years now. It doesn't wear out, it doesn't crack, doesn't break, it throws the snow real well. It's a nice long chute, so it maintains the form of the snow as it's coming out of the snow thrower, so it goes a long ways and it doesn't blow back in your face hardly ever at all. Being a hanging chute, what that means is that all the weight of the chute is right here on this bracket here. There's no down on the bottom of the chute, there's no support down there at all. It makes this chute real easy to use. You don't have any problems with it blowing off like some of the other ones. Also don't have any problems with it rattling on the bottom or wearing out down in the bottom. So say what you want about metal versus poly. This chute will last you the life of the snowblower. Alright, let's talk about the front end of this snowblower a little bit. TroyBilt uses the same thickness steel as all the other MTD products. It may look a little thinner than some of the more expensive brands, but couple things TroyBilt does to make it stronger is they put these stampings here in the side, That gives these panels a lot more rigidity, so they don't bend and rattle and break like they used to years ago. They also put structural in the housing itself, so it gives it a lot more strength than regular. One little feature that TroyBilt has is they have these reflective panels on the side, this reflective tape. That's nice, especially if you're working out by the road in the middle of the night. Car headlights really light that up. They also have poly skid shoes on all but the cheapest models. And on this one here, they have the excuse me, they have the long skid shoes, and they wear really well. They don't scratch your pavers or your deck or anything like that. They're also reversible. They've had these for quite a while now, and you never hear anybody complain about them. They're also fairly expensive if you do, fairly inexpensive if you do wear them out. I think they're only like $30 a set. So, but this long of a shoe on this light of a machine, you don't have to worry about it digging into gravel or anything like that. One other thing that TroyBilt does, sorry for my hands in here, is, I don't know, I have neighbors around here who've got some old MTD products, and just about every single one of them has a hole right here in the side of the impeller. Over the years, the snow and gravel and dirt and all that stuff just wears a hole in the side of them. Well, TroyBilt has put a replacement piece in there now, so that if that ever does wear out, you can easily replace it. If that wasn't there, you would have to replace the whole housing, which makes it not worth the money. That piece of plastic wears really, really well. In fact, can't even remember anybody needing a new one, but that's a nice little spot there to use something that you can replace if needed. Also, this poly is the same material as the chute, so you don't get any rattles and noises between here and the chute. Some of the other brands, the steel here and the steel here, they'll sit there and rattle and make noise on you. There's no weight of the chute on this area here. It's a hanging chute, so there's nothing to bind or get stuck. Let's move around to the front. If you notice that today's snowblowers, the intakes are all a lot higher than what they used to be. There's still a couple out there. Some of the Simplicities still have a fairly low intake, but all in all, now they've gone from like a 14 or 15 inch high intake to everybody is using the 21 or 22 inch tall. That's really nice from the fact that you can go into a drift, and the majority of the time the drift is not tall enough that the snow doesn't pile up and slide over the back of the top of the housing. It always used to be an issue. The snow would slide over the top and you'd get stuck, and other just aggravating things about clearing snow. So that's pretty much changed. TroyBilt also has a lip here, and it's not a sharp edge, so you can just grab the machine and pick it up if you want to inspect it or work on anything. You're not going to hurt the engine by tipping it up on the back like this. Let me raise this up. This will give me and we'll start talking about it. Alright, so TroyBilt MTD uses what I call a closed flight auger system. It does a very good job, a closed flight system does a very good job of keeping the snow moving into the impeller at a consistent rate. One of the disadvantages of it is if you have heavy wet snow, it doesn't clear like the open flight augers. So a lot of times it'll pack up. If you got a really heavy wet slushy stuff, this will turn into a cylinder of snow instead of an auger system. But for the price, to alleviate that, you just go a little bit slower, or you take a half pass. You're just fine. I don't see that as a problem. I just see that as, I just want to explain the differences to you. TroyBilt also has shear pins on every flight. So there's 4 shear pins across here. If you hit anything, the shear pin will break instead of tearing the gearbox out. They also have plastic spacers in between here. These plastic spacers don't wear out. Bearings. The outboard side is a bushing, and then it's held in place with this cap. They're self-lubricated, never have to worry about them. You don't have to put grease in them or anything over the years. You also don't have to grease the shaft on this one like you do with the other machines that have just the 2 shear pins in them, because these are all nice and loose. They don't rust up and get tight on you. Let me move this in a little bit here. The gear case on these, on MTDs, are aluminum. They are split in the middle, so every once in a while you'll get one that'll leak a little bit. You can replace the lube that leaks out with a plug here up on the top. Some of them have a nut, some of the older models. Where else am I at here? Okay. The scraper bar is non-reversible. Hardly any of them are nowadays. It's a decent little scraper bar. It will last. If you adjust your skid shoes so that you have about a 1/4 to 3/8 inch clearance underneath here, you'll never have to replace them anyway. Just pay attention that if your skid shoes start to wear, you might have to readjust them to keep that clearance there. That's just to help you keep a clean and to cut the heavier packed on snow off. It's really not there to wear out. In my opinion, it's not there to drag it on the ground all the time and wear it out. The housings on the TroyBilt are built well. See where I'm at here. Now, it's kind of hard for you to see, but it's a 3-piece, back sides, each side, and then it's welded in place. Let's see if I can look way down into the impeller housing here. Can I do this? Yeah, I think so. This TroyBilt uses a steel impeller, and these are 12-inch impellers. There is a hole down in the bottom of the impeller housing, a drain hole for water. They have a nice cup on them, so they do throw the snow out very well. And they also have reinforcements on the back. Some of the things I like about the impeller is, besides the curve, it's tapered on the back side, so snow and ice and that stuff can't get behind it and freeze it all solid when you're done working. Transmission and wheels. This TroyBilt uses the 6-speed forward, 2 in reverse friction drive transmission. It's a standard transmission that's been used for years. We don't have any problems with it anymore. At one time, some of the manufacturers had problems with the rubber tire inside the transmission, that it would dry rot or crack or fall apart, but we just don't have problems like that anymore. I will put a video together here shortly about looking inside of it and showing you what the inside of the transmission looks like and how to change the belts and stuff like that. In other words, the transmission is inexpensive or economical, and it does last. It's easy to adjust if you have any if the neutral's not in the right spot, stuff like that. I know guys that use these for years and years and years and never have anything go wrong with the transmissions in them. This particular model has the TroyBilt airless tires. Myself, I like them a lot. Of course, there's always the other three guys out there on the internet who think they're the worst thing in the world. But I'm not quite sure why they feel that way. It has a nice metal rim. It's a nice tall tire. It's fairly wide. It's a little bit wider than most of your tread tires. So, and it's the top of the tire is concave, or I call it stepped, so that when you go to turn, the tire's not as wide. It's less that it's riding on, which makes it easier to turn. And especially if you have a machine like this without the power steering in it, that's a nice feature to have, because you can turn them without breaking your back. But the tire is wide, and the grooves in the tread are nice and deep, so that if you do need the traction, it's there. I don't know. I really do like these. In fact, I'd like to see TroyBilt start putting these on lawnmowers. I think there's a lot less hassle to them than the pneumatic tires. That's really about it for the transmission and wheels. And okay, next. All right, next is the engine. The engine on this is TroyBilt's latest overhead valve. A couple things that they've done to this particular engine is the tank is now plastic, so it doesn't rust on you. It is a ratcheting cap, so you get the right amount of tension, so you still have a little, everything works correctly there. They have a full-length dipstick in them. Dipstick is easy to get a hold of, even with gloved hands. Over here they have electric start if you want to use it. Just plug your regular outdoor extension cord into it. Press the button instead of pulling the handle. TroyBilt has changed the muffler design on this a little bit. It's a little bit more quieter than the older models. But this is not the noise guard technology. There's another guy out there, excuse me. There's another video out there that shows this engine and they say it's the noise guard. It's not. The noise guard engine, the muffler, runs all the way across the front up here. Those are the ones that are where you don't have any exhaust noise. Basically about the only noise out of the engine is it being an air cooled. Does that make sense to you? Air cooled engines are always noisier than water cooled engines like your car, just because the internal noise comes out the sides of them. And let me move around to this side a little bit here. One thing I enjoy about this new engine, is all the controls are slanted back here, so they're really easy to see, and they're easy to use. TroyBilt engines do not have a fuel shutoff. They have a stop on the throttle. And then they have a full range throttle on them, from slow all the way up to fast. Sorry for all the throat clearing today. Of course, when you're blowing snow, when you're clearing snow, you always want to have your engine running at the full RPM. Yes, it may be noisier, but that's what makes the machine work the best, when the engine is running at the full RPM. Their primer bulb is the type with the little hole in the front middle of it, so make sure you have your finger over that hole when you pump it 2 or 3 times before you start. Throttle is, choke is up here, and it's a step choke. With a carbureted engine, cold air, working outside in the wintertime, you're not always going to be able to run it all the way on full open without it not wanting to run and run even. So that's why they put the notches in here. So if your engine is surging on you, just move this a notch or two and it'll straighten back out again. That's just the nature of these smaller engines in cold weather. And like on their other designs, spark plugs are real easy to get a hold of. There's no way to drain the fuel on these, but I do have another video showing you how to get the fuel out of them if you really need to. Myself, I buy fresh fuel. I only keep a couple gallons around at a time, and I kind of watch the forecast. If it's going to snow, I'll go buy some fuel. Otherwise, I don't have a whole lot sitting around here. I do put seafoam in my fuel, and the seafoam fuel treatment, it's about 1 ounce per gallon, which is about 2 tablespoons per gallon. I put that right in the storage can when I go buy my fuel. These engines run pretty good. You can go back and you can watch some videos of me using this over the last couple of years, and you can see that this engine does a real good job for a 28-inch on a 28-inch machine. If you go to a smaller, like the 26-inch TroyBilt, and it still has this engine on, you're going to have even more power for throwing snow. Alright, that's it on the engine. Next, one thing that I run into on the TroyBilts and other MTD machines is after you've had them for a while, the control cable sometimes will stretch just a little bit. And what happens is that, and I'll show you here with the single hand control, if you grab a hold of them and use them with both hands, everything runs fine. The snowblower throws snow really well, so on and so forth. But if you try to use it one hand, this pops up just a little bit. See that? Yeah, it pops up. That'll release just a little bit of tension on the belts, and it won't throw as far. It's a real simple fix to just readjust the cables so that is so it works good all the time. And what you do, all the cable adjustments on this are all done down here on the bottom. How's that? Okay, the cable for the auger control is the one over here on the left, right there. And if you're running into problems with the machine not throwing snow the way it should, and particularly you notice it when you're using the one-hand control, notice the slot in that cable right there. All you do is loosen those 2 nuts here and here, those 2 bolts, and slide that down and put a little bit more tension on it. That's all you need to do. If you do happen to break one of these cables, they're easy to replace. If your machine is, when you say it's not backing up as fast as it used to, or the neutral's in the wrong spot, that adjustment is made right here on the machine. By sliding that, loosening that nut, and then moving that up and down, there's actually holes here that you can make major adjustments with. You can play around with that so that you can get your reverse back or get your neutral set. And then finally over here on the drive control, these machines will spin the wheels. if everything is working correctly. So in other words, if you're going along your driveway and excuse me again, if you're going along your driveway and the machine is slowing down or stops and the wheels are not turning, that means that you need to adjust your clutch. So that's the right hand handle, and those adjustments are made right there. Loosen those bolts and move that down, and that'll tighten that cable, which will get you back up again. One other thing to remember on a TroyBilt is if you're blowing snow, and say you're blowing a foot of snow and the machine wants to keep riding up on you, the front end wants to keep coming up, you're doing one of two things. One, you either got it in too high of a gear and it's trying to push too much snow into the machine, or you have one or more shear pins broke up front. And that's typically what it is one of the shear pins is broke, and that's not letting all the snow come into the machine, so front end wants to push up on you. Just something nice to remember. Oh, and TroyBilt always puts a drain tube on for the oil. Nice bright oil drain sticker there. That little flat on that pipe is you can put a wrench on there and hold that, and then unscrew the cap off the end of it. That way it won't spin out of the engine. If you ever need parts, always take the information off of this label down here. You'll need the model number and the serial number for your parts. And moving on, I think that's about it for the console and doing all these little minor adjustments to it. I'm showing you all these little things on this machine like this to make life a lot easier for you. There's nothing more frustrating than a snowblower that's not working correctly, and most of the time it's just a small minor adjustment. It's nothing major on the machine. These are mechanical pieces of equipment. They do require a little maintenance once in a while. So, alright, moving on. So that's about it for the TroyBilt 2860. TroyBilt does make another snowblower that's very similar to this. It's called the 2665. It's 2 inches smaller, and it has the regular aired tires on it. This one, or the one that's slightly smaller, are two of the better bargains out there on the market right now. It's a good solid machine. If you live here in the Midwest or any place in the country that averages 60 inches or less of snow, this machine will last you a long time. Remember, it does not have power steering, so it uses a solid axle instead. It does turn very well with these airless tires, but if you have a bad back or something like that, I do recommend that you go to a machine with the power steering on it. The power steering ones, of course, are the ones that have the triggers underneath the handles right here. Otherwise, for the money, this is a very good machine. It's going to last you a long, long time if you do just a little bit of maintenance to it. And if you have any questions, of course, don't forget to subscribe if you like these videos, and I'll keep making them. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. And that's about it. Thank you. Bye.
Down in the dirt.